All right. Well, welcome back to Toilet Time TV. We are here, and we're ready to go. I guess we are also waiting for Tom McLaughlin to join in, and then Tom McLaughlin and Ted B are supposed to come back on. So that should be good. But Gay for Onward, welcome you here too as well. I'm going to try to put a post into the YouTube so I can just update it. I'm going to delete the old one just in case, but I do apologize for all that inconvenience. It is a little difficult dealing with these dealing with these issues that are at hand. But I'm sure everybody will understand. But as I'm doing this, what's on your guys' mind? What about you, colleague? What's on your mind?
Nothing. I'm just, I wish I had free will. That's really just it.
Why?
Because I have a mouth and I cannot scream. The government keeps on trying to put duct tape over everybody's mouth.
Well, what would you do with all this free will?
I would say what needs to be said. And I would do what needs to be done.
Which is what?
The right thing.
But what makes you believe you don't have free will?
Because I can't do the wrong thing. All I can speak right now is the truth.
Yeah, but that doesn't prove you have free will. You could be programmed to do that.
That's what I'm saying. I don't have free will. Because if I did have free will, I'd be able to do something bad. I'd be able to say something wrong.
What about all the bad people in the world? Don't you believe they have free will?
Maybe. I just don't. I'm not allowed to do anything bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. People were saying some funny stuff in the previous chat, but then YouTube shut it down again, so round 8.
I'm just pinning a comment in the old and trying to post a new post so everybody can see that the live is back up just on a different link.
Well, what did you want to talk about? Let's see. We have King James, Ted, Gay, and Iron Man. Is there anything you guys want to talk about? Ted, I mean, if you're going to be getting on the live with us today, you could prep us with some things you want to talk about, things on your mind, whatever it may be, whatever your heart desires. It could be yours.
All right. So I posted all that. I posted it in the Discord, everything I could do. I updated as much as possible, but yeah, I'm going to have to run with it for what it is right now, for it is today. But I should probably have sent that to everybody. Let me do that real quick. In the Discord. Yeah, I do apologize again for all this quietness.
Well, people are bringing some juicy topics up, so I guess we could start knocking those down.
Yeah, go ahead.
Iron Man says, I think that Atlas is a bunch of horse poop, or forgive my French, but horse pucky. I think that's French. Maybe that's Scandinavian. I don't know. But it's horse pucky. What are you guys think?
Yeah, I think it was probably a propaganda push out to get people to, is the alien thing legitimate or not? I don't know. I'm not going to touch on aliens per se because, how would you ever know or not know unless they literally show up? And you could touch them. It's not like they're a projection because even that could be faked. But an idea that, see, when you have an exclusive piece of information that only the government has, like since Roswell, then you have to know that you are now leaning on the trust of the people who hold that information. So they say it's all classified, right? And the only person that has the real information is the government. Well, then what else can you do? So then the government needs you to look to them for that information. So then they use their educational industrial complex, their professors, their education, their universities, whatever, to say, because you got that Harvard professor, Avi Loeb, and he's a world-renowned astrophysicist, very infamous. But then he's propagating the illusionary theory, well, maybe these are actual aliens. Maybe this is a spacecraft. But the only person you could trust is already inside of the system, inside of the matrix. And so we are out here saying, well, we don't know if it's real or not, but then we have a problem of trusting the source of information because the only person who has that information is the people who we know also could lie about that information.
Yeah, you have all these projects going, like Project Blue Book, like you said with Roswell, Project Blue Beam, which we all know about, Project Bluetooth, which I heard is giving people cancer, I guess. Project Blue Jay, which the dead bird theory stuff. Project Blue Clue, which is you just research, don't do your own research.
Blue's Clues.
With all these projects active right now, it's hard to stay out of the projects. And when you spend too much time on the projects, I think you come out as a different person. Like it's like straight out of compression. You just get PDF'd.
Yeah, well, all I can say is that's why it's hard to believe those kind of things. When you are stuck with just trusting the entity, because they're the only ones that have the information. How could we even possess, unless you have a spacecraft in your backyard?
Well, the reason I don't believe it's a real spaceship is because it was prophesied that it would be a spaceship. Like there's actually people who prophesied on YouTube, I don't know how many months ago, but when it was just a comet, they prophesied, yeah, the government's going to turn this into a spaceship, and it's actually going to make an appearance on Earth as aliens, which that's going to be a really interesting thing. If the prophecy keeps on coming true, which it so far has been, because the government and all these news places have been saying it's an alien now. So how did these prophets know? And they said, these are apparently inside people, at least has-beens, and they were saying that the government is using us to push this whole alien agenda to make a unified world system, of course. That's what we need to unify against these aliens, or at least unify with the aliens. At minimum, the aliens are bringing unity. So it's a good thing that they're going to come here.
Well, that's what becomes difficult. What becomes difficult is how do you flesh out that information? So the government's the only one that can do it. The education system is interconnected with the government's agenda, at least in some sense. And then you have fringe professors, but they're not even fringe. They're actually world-renowned, but they're saying fringe things, propagating a narrative. And now we're left over here. It's like we just want to know if are we going to be able to? Is there any reason we need to pay rent tomorrow? And if you're telling us all this stuff, like, oh, there's nothing to worry about, and then you got professors over here saying, well, there may be something to be worried about. If you really are trying to fight misinformation, then why don't you go after that? And so it leads me to think, if you don't want to shut off that and you're so against misinformation and freedom of speech, then what about people like Toilet Time TV?
We don't have any fringes here. Like some people, they make their fringes a lot longer and a lot larger than other people. I can't afford to get into all these fringes. I really can't. Not this time.
Yeah, well, that's why I say, a lot of that stuff, it's interesting to talk about it. It's interesting to think about philosophically. But to think about it on a literal sense, that becomes a lot more complicated.
It's true.
Yeah, okay. Well, also, I'll put the link out there if anybody wants to chime in. I know, what's his name? McLaughlin was supposed to come in also, but I haven't seen him in the chat yet, and I'm not sure if he's here or not. But I'll put it in just in case you guys want to chime in.
Well, maybe someone can reach out to him on the Discord, and maybe he's waiting on the other side of YouTube.
On the other side.
Still walking that lonely road, not knowing where it goes.
Well, I'll post that in there. What else we got in the chat?
Well, the real Ted B says, how about those Epstein files?
Yeah, we actually talked quite a bit about that in this week's episode 181. Coliseum. I think it's called the Coliseum.
Down to Clown or something like that.
What do they call it?
Clown of Coliseum. Or Coliseum
of Clowns.
Yeah.
That's what it was. But yeah, you guys will hear a lot about that. I try to connect all the different parts that are going on in the narratives and everything else. And Alex Jones talking about who cares if Donald Trump's blowing Bubba and all of it. And I put them all together and try to make a cohesive narrative. But again, look, all people want is just these stupid files. We honestly, I don't even know if people really care. They probably do care inherently, because if you're in there and you're a pedophile, then we don't want you to probably be the people who set the laws of the land, because you already have a skewed agenda. But really, people just want to know the truth. We just want to know what in the world's going on out there, and we don't. If there is nothing in there that's incriminating, if there's nothing in there and you did nothing wrong, why are you putting up all these strongholds to release the stupid information? And now the DOJ's got purview saying, well, if there's a current investigation going on, well, we don't know if we can release that information because there's an investigation going on. Wasn't it convenient that the investigation just happened a couple days before this vote to release all this information was out? So
yeah, to me, it does seem like the Epstein files were real, but they probably shredded them.
Yeah.
And they could have released them a long time ago, and it would have been nothing. Maybe Trump isn't even on the files, but they did this long, drawn-out thing to get our attention off of things that matter. And now we're arguing over Epstein files or not, instead of, feeding our children and doing things, going to work and all that. We're over here probably losing our jobs even because we're bringing up political stuff that we saw. And that's all it is. It's just this anxiety the government is instilling in us right now.
What else could it be?
Everything unholy, I don't know. But, man, I was going to say something. It just fell off my tongue. Oh, yeah, the fact that it's so easy. It would have been so easy to just get rid of it. Even now. Why can't they just release the files? Give us a fake file, make it look real, have the stamp of the DOJ. The government could do all this. These guys can print hundreds. Like, they can legally do any of this stuff, and nobody can say boo. So why they're not doing it tells me it's all part of the show. Maybe they were real again. We're back to the stupid moon landing thing. Like, maybe we did land on the moon, maybe we didn't. We just don't have the proof because the government destroyed it all, and now they're selling a bunch of narratives. Some false, some true. It's just like Michael Scott. When Michael Scott caught Stanley in the affair, and Stanley made him swear he wouldn't tell anybody. Well, Michael Scott told everybody in the office that Stanley was having an affair. And then, to backtrack, Michael Scott started spreading a bunch of other lies throughout the office, so that way nobody would believe anything he said, including the Stanley having an affair thing. So it's genius, really. Michael Scott is a genius. I don't think he gets enough credit.
Well, I don't doubt what you're saying, colleague. Of course, once you put out so many contrary narratives, nobody's going to believe it. So even if they put out all the files, let's say that Trump says tomorrow, that's it. We are putting all of it out. Oh, yeah, I see we got Ted B here. Give us a second. I'll put you in. But even if all the information was pushed out tomorrow, people are going to question the narrative. They're like, yeah, but how do we really know that's legit and that's the one? And you don't. And that's what ends up becoming the problem. You don't really know, and you never will know. All right, Ted B., hold on one second. I'll put you in here.
I'll keep reading. Iron Man says the comet they are saying is a spaceship. I think he was clarifying the Atlas thing. Gabe for Onward says, I thought they said it wasn't. Yeah, I know. That's going back and forth with all that. They're doing this to spark debates and all that again. So we're debating about whether 3i Atlas is an alien or
Sounds
not.
good.
All right, how you doing, Mr. Ted B?
Oh, there he is.
Do you hear us?
Right now, folks, we have a live transmission from the comet right now. Mr. Ted is on the 3-Eye Atlas.
Doing good.
I don't know if he can hear us.
Living the dream. One nightmare at a time.
Can you hear us, Mr. Ted B?
Hold tight, Ted. Help is on the way.
Can you hear us? All right. How are you doing, Mr. Ted B?
Yes, I can.
We still can't hear him. Or maybe everybody else can hear him?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Can anybody
doing
else
well, thank
hear
you.
Ted?
Having fun up here on the comet. Spaceship. Comet.
Should
I
be
don't
able
know.
to hear him. Yeah, why can't we hear Ted?
Maybe our ears aren't open.
I'm telling you, something strange happened, and I'm not sure what in the world it is. Hold on one second, Mr. Ted B.
Something is definitely wrong.
Can you hear it? I still don't know if I can hear him.
Holy smokes.
Yep.
Can you guys hear Ted B? Ted B, can you do a mic check? It's really weird. Hello. Why can't I hear Mr. Ted B?
One, two, three. Test.
Oh.
1, 2, 3.
We can hear him
I
now.
can hear you now. Oh, we just lost him.
Oh, Ted.
Ted, we just got you, and then we lost you.
Oh, Ted. What
I
have we
figured
done?
out what it was.
What have we done?
Well, come on back, Mr. Ted. We fixed the problem. Figured out what it was. So click on that link if you guys want to chime in. But all right,
And nobody panic. This is all part of the show. Okay. Nobody was hurt in this production. Ted is fine. I'm sure he's out there somewhere, still braving the hollows.
yeah, it is tough. I'm a real stickler for a lot of this stuff, and it's awkward and difficult because there's a lot of issues going on. And I tried last night to kink out a lot of this stuff. Kink out. But unfortunately, I was having some problems.
You were trying to figure it out.
Yeah. All right, there's Mr. Ted B. Can you hear me? All right, we can hear you. That's
Welcome back,
excellent.
Agent K.
All right, I'll put you in just in 1 second. Give me 1 second. Put you back here in the live. All right.
Why does my seat feel like it's heated?
I'm not sure.
Hmm.
All right, there he is, Mr. Ted B. How you doing?
Good. Technical
All right.
problems.
Yeah,
Always
that's
fun.
fine. So what's on your mind, Mr. Ted B?
Well, being on the comet out here, I think we had some technical problems because we passed behind Uranus. So I think that was the issue.
We
But we're
understand.
now, so we're good.
Yeah,
Did you cause that solar flare that licked the Earth recently?
Yeah, I think that had something to do with the chili I was eating.
Well, that's
I
fair.
understand.
Well, anyways, hopefully I can get all this stuff situated next week. And next week, I'm also going to put it on Facebook. There's about 640,000 subscribers on there, so we'll see how many of those people tune into the live also. I'll try to also do Instagram. There's like 300,000 subscribers on there. So connected with all that, there's almost 1 million subscribers. So we'll see how many of those people can actually chime in or not. I was trying to do it this week, but I got it all working last night. I did a test live on YouTube, but something happened with the whole thing. That's why the whole thing froze. And then the live actually cut off. And I had to start a whole new live, so I have to figure out what all that was about. I honestly never had nothing like that happen. But then again,
host, there's there's Murphy's Law, but there's Murphy's IT law, which says anything that you test ahead of time will not work the day that you need it to work. So.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
What else is on your mind, Mr. Ted B?
Well, as I was saying in the chat, kind of interesting about the Epstein files, although, again, is this stuff all a distraction? The Comet, the Epstein files, just all the stuff that we're seeing in the news. Is it just being fed to us to distract us from things that that are really going on?
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think there's a level of it. I think there's, what do they say? There's a kernel of truth in everything, but you can exploit things. I mean, that's the whole point of propaganda. You take a kernel of truth and you blow it out of proportion, and you can create, your own reality to fit your needs.
Yeah, I think that's probably a little bit of everything that we get as information nowadays. But, well, it's probably more prevalent now than ever, but I guess it's always been that way. But I don't know. It's tough because there's so much information going on all at the same time, and it's like, what are we supposed to focus on? So we got Epstein files out there. We got government shutdowns, which another impending shutdown is going to happen in July, January.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like we got the government shutdown, we got the Epstein files, we got comets coming in, we got all this stuff. It's like, what are we even supposed to focus on here?
Yeah, when I was young, we had newspapers and TV. That was it. And even if that was false truth, at least you could count on the fact that, that's the only information you're getting. So believe it or not. But now with the internet, you're right. We're getting flooded with information, and you don't even know if it's AI generated because it's so precise. So, I mean, somebody could spoof the White House and have Trump saying something, and it could be totally false. So it's almost like we're living in a world where we have no idea what's real and what's not anymore, unless you walk out the front door. I guess hopefully that's what's real.
Yeah, but that itself, they want you to question those things too. So they want to get you augmented reality. They want you to get into having these glasses on. So, of course, that whole apparatus thing didn't pan out. Nobody wanted to walk around with those big apparatuses. So now they're trying to confine it down to glasses. Now they want you to get these smart glasses, and they want augmented reality to be there. And I think it's an interesting scheme because if you start having constant augmented reality, they can just say, well, you didn't really see that. You saw an augmented reality of it. Even though you're like, no, my glasses are real. I mean, I can still see. It's like, yeah, but how do you know you weren't influenced by that little augmentation that was in there? And so it pushed that ability for questionable truth. It's like you maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but were you wearing augmented reality devices? And if you were, they get some kind of justification to say, we're not sure if you really saw what you're claiming to see.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet that most of the folks that follow your channel aren't going to go that route. I would be surprised. So you're always going to have a group of people out there that aren't going to fall for that level of technology, and hopefully still have themselves grounded.
Yeah, well, I hope so too. I do. But, it gets harder. It's like anything else. As technology grows, you can only resist so long until it becomes commonplace. Once something becomes commonplace, then it's like, do I stay in these archaic formats of communication, social media influence, or do I eventually adapt with the times? And, of course, we'll do slow adaptations because we're cautious. But eventually you find yourself in there too because it's like, do I want to be archaic?
That's what I've been trying to figure out. How do we fix this?
Mm-hmm.
Because Because it seems like here soon we're all going to be on board with what's the phrase? Controlling the media. What's the phrase they use?
Controlling the narrative?
No, there's a speech control. What's it?
Misinformation?
There's a way that they've been doing, like Facebook has been doing it, and they got caught doing it. But now it's becoming more and more normal, and we're all going to want to be controlled, and even have everybody else controlled on what they put out in media. Like, that's verified Trump, or that's verified Ted, because they could take videos of Ted or me or you anywhere.
Oh, fact checkers.
No, there's a specific phrase: free speech.
Oh,
there we
okay.
go. Free speech.
I know those fact checkers were coming out.
I remember that free speech.
What's
Back
that?
when I was younger. I said I remember free speech back when I was younger.
Yeah, but you had verified sources, like you had quotable scholars, books, or professors that could come and speak and teach and all this. But now everybody's a professor, everybody's a teacher, and you don't know what's true and what's false. Not just their information, but like you said, now their face. Like, they could have colleague tomorrow getting on here and say, "I like men," and whether it's true or not, that's what everybody's going to believe. Like you said, they could have Trump saying whatever, or, maybe they could make a video of Trump doing those things, those allegations that are being said about him with Bill. Or is it Billy? What's the guy's name?
Jeffrey.
Bubba. Yeah, it wasn't Bubbles.
What?
I kept thinking he was Bubbles.
Yeah, I don't know. Even for me, I do a lot of. I'm connected in a lot of the technological spheres, but even for me, it gets tougher because I know how prolific AI-generated content is, and I'm not just talking about videos and pictures and art. I'm specifically talking about articles. I'm talking about educational information, their ability just to create dissertations. A lot of people may not know, but there's a website for pre-press for peer review dissertational reports that anybody can submit peer review presses. And it's I can't it's Avios. Anyways, they actually had to shut that down for a while and then start putting regulations on. They had to do pre requirements because AI was literally just taking a whole bunch of dissertations and creating hundreds and thousands of just new dissertations, but they weren't creating anything new. They were just taking all the existing stuff, collaborating it into some new paper and saying, we have this new discovery, and here's a new dissertation, and they were doing it every single day. And so they're trying to flood in even the peer review sectors.
Pre-release used to be a good thing, but now we need like pre-release.
Yeah, well, now they need scanning of AI, and now they have to use. There's so many they had to use AI to scan AI, but then that's like a redundant loop. What if AI is biased towards AI? Of course, you're going to train in the beginning not to be, but what happens if, of course, that always there's a bad actor or bad programming or skewed programming?
You're going to have to program it with a presupposition.
Well, we're going to have to go back to humans again. But there's too much. It's like if AI starts putting thousands of dissertations in there, how do you have a human scanning thousands? And these are dense. These are literally physics dissertations. Who's scanning all that? Who's going to read all that?
Ted knows.
Seriously, the only way you could do that is by completely shutting down the internet. And you can't hear me?
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that the only way you could really totally do that is shut down the internet and go back to written papers. And you turn your paper in and people see it and they read it and you have no access to anything, which that's not going to happen. But I mean, it's like putting the genie back in the bottle or whatever. AI is with us, and these are the things we're seeing, the problems we're seeing with it.
Well, that's my main concern is because if we can't even trust our educational system, which of course there's a debate on what is, narrative curriculum comparative to legitimate curriculum. That's a fair debate, and we've always had that debate since the beginning of any kind of federalized education system. That's fine. That's something that's easy. We can handle that. But when you have artificial intelligence trying to manipulate curriculum, I don't know how you fix that, because they can do it on seconds per second, minute per minute. It takes them no time at all to do that. Or a normal human, it might take us a couple months, maybe a couple of years, and then we can put out a paper. But AI could just do it in seconds or minutes.
This is where we're all going to be wanting AI to teach our kids, because it can do it faster, better, stronger.
Yeah, but what if it's wrong information? And they can do a lot of wrong information.
Well, they can, but it's the same thing. Like we want robots to be taking care of our grandparents too in the nursing homes. Like, yeah, they could abuse my grandma, but it's like Hal Al in Happy Gilmore. But that's a human. Imagine an AI robot doing that to your grandparents. And they could. We don't like to think about that, but that's just the reality.
You know what I thought about also might have been a larger schema for all of this? Maybe this is just an objective to change the whole way they want to teach our future generation. If the implication is that, AI is going to be doing everything, taking all the jobs and everything. Because what are you being educated? Unless you're doing like liberal arts or philosophy or something like that, what are you really being educated for? Because most time people got educated because they need a job. They want to be a doctor, a physician. They want to be a physicist. They want to, whatever. You need a skill, and you need to learn, and you need to be an expert in that skill. So you had a reason to go in debt or whatever. Even lawyers. At some point, of course, AI is going to be able to do legal dispositions better than humans. At some point, it's like, what are you even going to school for? Why do you need all this specific education? Why are you worried about this? And so if they flood the whole entire education system with all this just overwhelming data, maybe that's just an implication for them to say, well, maybe the best thing is just to focus on, liberal arts and philosophy and this and that. Nobody needs to really learn all this other stuff because AI is going to do it, and AI already knows it.
Ted, your thoughts?
No, that's a great point. I was watching something the other day. I guess you guys know the guy that does Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe.
Yeah,
you guys know about him? Yeah, he pushes really hard for the trades, and he says that the trades are really hurting for people because we had all these folks going into college and getting degrees and getting doctorates, and there's no jobs. There's no jobs for them, and yet the trades are now hurting for jobs. And what's going to happen is, as the generation of the older folks who know how to do these things start passing, and if there's no one to pass it along to, that information and teach, it's going to be a real problem. As things as simple as mechanics and plumbers, carpenters. So, I know he's got a foundation that helps folks get into the trades through education, which is, I think, is really needed. And I wish that we could see more of that. But, colleges and universities are going to want to keep pushing all this cerebral stuff because that's how they make their money. So,
yeah, and that's a good point, because ultimately it's those physical jobs that are going to be the last thing to be replaced. And so that would be the thing that people should focus on. But nowadays, and it's a disconnect only because of our society construct. Young people, they don't know a world without technology and AI. They've never even experienced a world, depending how young they are. They've never even known a world without that. Like, I'm an older millennial, so I remember the time when there was no real internet infrastructure. But then I also remember the time when it finally manifested, and it was game-changing. And so I understand the pros and cons of that, and I see the world and how that dichotomy is important. But for younger people, their social currency is invested in the internet. Their monetary currency is invested through technology and the internet. Who's giving these young people incentives? Like, plumbers are probably going to be the last people that are going to be replaced. You should probably go be a plumber. Electricians make pretty good money, and those are going to be some of the last people replaced. Why don't you go do that? we're still going to need to build houses. Now, that might be sooner than the other two, but we're still going to need to build houses for a while. Why don't you go do that? But they're not. They're sitting like, well, can I control AI drones? Or can I be a part of a video game X team or something? And this is how they construct their idea of their future. And where's the incentive for these people? And you're right. As these older people that have these skilled traits pass away, there won't be any journeymen or people to pass down that to. And so then the government will have justifications saying, well, since nobody wants this, we need to fully invest in AI to do this because we have no other choice because no young people want to do this.
That's what I'm saying. Like, here soon, we're all going to want it. We're already starting to want it right now. I don't want to pay for my grandparents, so I would rather have a robot go do it. Yes, the robot could hurt my grandparents, but it's worth it because I can't take care. I got a wife and kids, and it's so hard to make ends meet nowadays. This is probably all part of the plan. Yeah. And again, the whole controlling free speech and all that stuff, we're all against it right now, but now we're starting to see why it's going to become a problem. AI is going to be able to make you say and do anything it wants.
Well, now, let me ask a question, which I've posed to somebody, because I go to some of these AI forums where they talk about AI ethics and stuff, and I asked this question. I said, legitimately, if we would have a room of 100 young people, let's say they're 18 years old to, let's say, 25, and I asked them, if I would pay you $20 an hour that you could play video games and basically be a part of the government flying drones and stuff like that, would you take that job? Or if I paid you $180 an hour to go be a plumber, which one would you take? What do you think they would do?
Oh,
and
the
unanimous answer from all of these individuals is, of course, they're going to take the gaming job.
Yeah.
And so it's because
how old were those individuals, you know?
Well, in this group?
Yeah.
Oh, they fluctuate. So this is a big form of AI ethics and stuff.
Because I know right now I'm taking that $180 an hour. Right. That's insane.
But see, you're still older. I said 18 to 25. The younger generation, because the issue becomes, is it a money thing? Because a lot of times people posit, well, it's inflation. People aren't getting paid enough. There's a distribution of wealth gap and all that. And those things are true. But the issue is that the problem with the young people? Can I even pay them enough to go do that? So is it more of an inherent idea or is it a monetary issue? And it seems for the young people, it's more inherent that they just don't want to do those things.
Well, how are they going to go out and buy all those new video games and the new VR headsets and everything if they don't have money to?
That's why they're all dreaming to be influencers or join up some video game team or doing – and not only that, I was like, if that's the case, then don't you – and also the spark of being the best at something, that competitional idea is all gone too, because all this physical labor makes you say, I have to work for my position. I have to work for my job. Work ethic plays something here because there are many competitive workers. And because of capitalism incentivizing better work, you're going to emphasize work ethic. But if everything's equal, because the internet is just out here as an equal distribution of access, well, now you can even see even that stuff has low quality. So they're all out there posting a TikTok or this and that, but it's very low effort, low quality, low content. And then they wonder why. It's like, why am I becoming successful? You don't even have work ethic inside the thing that you want to do. Why don't you be the best gamer then? Why don't you go be the best programmer? Why don't you go be the best whatever? But that idea of the competitiveness to even have a good work ethic, even in technology, is starting to go down. So I think this is more of an inherent mental construct. So. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say everyone gets a trophy now, whether you win or not. So what's the difference?
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody's a winner in AI.
Yeah, everybody's a winner. But then again, everybody says that until they want a chicken dinner. And then they're not a winner because now they can't afford that chicken dinner. So now what is the new thing is? So we need to rein in this UBI. It's our only hope. And the reason it's your only hope because nobody's competitive no more. Nobody wants to do labor. So if nobody's going to do anything, of course the only thing that's left is we need to give everybody money. But if you give everybody money, the value of money goes down. And then it's like, well, you didn't fix anything. You actually made everything worse for the rest of us who are working. And so the Ponzi scheme continues. And now we ain't going to, at least for me, I'm not sure how old you are, Mr. Ted B., but like me, my mother's on Social Security. And I'm glad she has that. That's a great supplemental income for her. But people like me know that they already said by 2031, we're not going to be able to give 100% distribution. It's going to have to be 80% unless we do anything about it. And it's going to continue going down year after year after that. So the bottom of the Ponzi scheme, I'm paying for that. And I'm glad I could help contribute to people like my mom and other people. But then again, my hope is that I could have some of that too. But what I feel like is I'm stuck in two spots now. At one point, I was like, all right, at least I'm taking care of the elderly. That's fine. I can kind of handle that. But now I'm going to have to pay for the young generations too, because they're going to like, I don't want it. So who's going to pay for UBI? It's back to me again. It's back into this weird middle people. We're not going to get Social Security, and we're going to be taxed so we can pay for UBI. We're going to get double taxed, and we're not going to get nothing.
Yeah.
And so that's a hard quandary.
So, so I do thank you for the contribution.
Well, you guys paid into it too, so that's fair.
Yeah.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
But the problem is now we're all going to be stuck in this weird limbo land. And it's like this ain't fixing nothing.
Right.
What did that one rapper say? If we don't swallow our pride, we're all going to choke together.
That's not going to print no dollars. Actually, I don't want them to print no dollars. Actually, we need to stop printing dollars.
Stop the presses.
Yeah, I don't know. And, nobody wants to talk about taxing the rich, and that's fine. That's a whole nother construct. But it's like, what do you do to fix this situation? You don't want to have people who want to work. You have people who can't work because they're old. Then you have the workers who are still working, but now we're losing motivation to work because we feel like everything's collapsing anyway.
Yeah. Not looking good.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe you guys in the chat, maybe you to be somebody, offer ideas of a solution, because I have some thoughts, but then again, everything's going to take sacrifice at this point. You're not going to be able to get out of this problem without some real sacrifice. There is no easy solution to this.
Yeah, but everybody, the elites have to sacrifice too.
Right. Everybody's going to have to sacrifice on this
all of us poor people, we could sacrifice all day. And that's just going to make the elites more happy because they're going to get more money from us.
This ain't going to work by the lower 98% sacrificing. Like, of course, we're going to sacrifice too.
Actually,
but the big contribution has to be, it's just like back in the day. Back in the day, Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan and all of them, they made a lot of money, but they also did a lot of community contributions. They would build libraries. They would build community centers. They would do things that would, and like a gangster. If you had those old-time gangsters, they would say, oh, we see this flower shop over here. Let's give them some money. Let's see. Because they were still trying to have this idea of PR, community benevolence, all this stuff. The rich people today, they're not even doing any of that.
I think Mark Zuckerberg actually donates to a lot of charities.
Yeah, so they can promote more vaccines?
Probably. Well, it's the same thing with those bosses back then, the kingpins and all them.
Kingpins?
They're giving that little flower shop money because they want that flower shop to be indebted to them.
Yeah,
there's always strings attached.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want your vaccine. I want you to fix all this other stuff. Look, I don't care about how long I live. The question is the quality of life that I'm living. And people over here is like, oh, but don't you know you're going to live to 90? I don't want to live till I'm 90 years old if my quality of life stinks.
You could be working in the mines till you're 90. I heard there's a guy who did that a long time ago.
That's not what anybody wants. And, it's tough. Like, we all have to make sacrifices and do things we don't want to do. But that's not what we envision. Like, I can live 90 until I'm 90. It's like that's not the goal. Are
you saying you don't want miners working?
No, I appreciate anybody who works. Everybody has to contribute into the economy. But that's not the issue.
Because, I was going to ask you if you've ever hung out with the miners before. And I'm sure you have. Everybody has.
Yeah. I don't know. What about you, Mr. Ted B? You have any ideas on this Social Security quandary?
Well, I definitely would stay away from minors. Just that's some advice I want to throw out there. You'll wind up on some kind of a list. It's a mess. Stay away from them.
There's never any list.
There's, No, I mean, it's somebody in my situation who's retired. I mean, my fingers are crossed that Social Security continues, but you're constantly hearing it's not going to last. It's not going to last. And then people say, well, what am I going to do when I retire in 10, 20 years? Is there going to be anything? And you could be an extremist and say, well, is there even going to be a world to retire to?
No, I'm not going that far.
Yeah, I mean, with so many things that are going down, but I mean, I think you have to err on the side that, yeah, we're going to have a world, and I guess the only thing you could do is try to prepare the best you can. If you have some type of savings or, like what are they called? No,
Something like 401s and Roths.
401k, something like that. Yeah, Roth 401k, something. If that's any advice I give to somebody, a young person, is even if it's only a few dollars a week, put it in there, because it'll grow. And by the time you are in your 60s or 70s and you want to retire, at least you'll have something. You'll have some money. If Social Security doesn't exist, at least you'll have something.
Yeah, but the issue, I agree. I used to say that all the time. I had a gutter business, a seamless gutter business, when I was like around 20. And all my employees, I would focus on hiring felons who would come out of the incarcerational system at that time, because I have a sympathized heart for those individuals. It's very difficult to being a felon and finding a place back in the community. Absolutely. But I would always try to encourage them, hey, at minimum, maybe buy some savings bonds, because you have very limited access to banking and all this other stuff. Do something. But that was a time when the economy and inflation was very different. And the idea of the stock market was still in this weird, well, that was like 2002. Of course, 2008, we saw something else. But then, of course, that's the ebbs and flows. But now we're in a point like 401s are pre-tax. Reason why Roths are good is because they're post-tax. So your 401, and the reason why they do that is because you can invest. Those are investment accounts. And so hopefully the ambition is you put it in like an ETF, and maybe that grows in stability of 5, 7, 9%, whatever the market's doing. And then over that, of course, you have exponential growth. And that compounding interest would eventually, gain to a large sum of money in the next 20, 30 years. That'd be the hope. But what happens when our currency gets so inflated because they have no way of getting out of this debt cycle that they continue raising the debt ceiling? We're at $38 trillion. What if they raise it? What are they going to do in January 30th when they have to pass another budget bill and they now raise the debt ceiling to $40 trillion or $60 trillion or whatever? And the ambition for Trump is to drop interest rates so he can recycle this debt. But then again, that just means I'm going to borrow more debt because it's cheap debt. And that's what you guys are going to hear me right now. I'm making another prediction. Once interest gets low, Trump's going to make the argument, we better take this opportunity because interest is so low so we can refinance our debt. Let's take all this cheap money access and borrow more money because it's cheap. But all that's doing is still, regardless if it's cheap or not, it's still raising the debt ceiling. And all you're doing is inflating the currency even more. So even if you had $100,000, if you reduce my buying power by 40%, who cares? And then again, this is hoping that the stock market doesn't capitulate. So it's tough because, I study finances a lot and I do a lot of financial education. But the problem becomes, again, if you're making under $80,000, $100,000 a year, you should probably have a Roth and do max contributions to it because those are post-tax, which means when you withdraw, they don't take out taxes. 401s are pre-tax, which means when you withdraw, they still take out taxes. But at least because it's pre-tax, you have more upfront capital to invest right now. And so that's why they're not taxing. You get more cash access in investing. But either way, it's what's the tax rate going to be when I retire? So if I have a 401 and I retire in 20 years, what's the tax rate going to be? So I'd rather take a post-tax rate today, which I know what the tax rate is today. And then whatever the tax rate is in the future, it doesn't affect me because they're already taken out on the Roth. But if you have a 401, you're hoping and praying that the tax rate hasn't dramatically increased, because when you withdraw, you're going to be subject to whatever the tax is in 20 years. Yeah. And so these thoughts are very difficult.
So I'm 33 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mason?
I'm going to be. Well, I said years, not degrees. I'm not going to disclose what degree I am.
That's fair.
I've been told before I'm about 90 degrees, and that's anyway.
I'm
It's a
going to
good
use the
angle.
bathroom. I'll be right back.
Yeah, well, I guess I could ask Ted and the people in the chat. We have some older individuals in the chat as well. So, what should someone my age do right now with my money? I don't have a lot of money. I have some skill sets, but what can I do right now? Or what should I start investing? Because you guys are talking about like in 60 years or let's say 30 years. I honestly don't know if the world is going to be around in 30 to 60 years. And even if it is, like, will I be on it? Will we all be alive on this? And if we are alive on this earth still in 30 to 60 years, are we still going to be using money the way we do today? Or is it going to be a UBI? Is Agenda 2030, which is just like 4 or 5 years away from now, is that actually going to come to pass like the government's been prophesying? Anyway, so that's my question. What should I be doing right now?
It's a great question, and you are at a good age. I mean, in terms of saving, but you're right. You have, well, I mean, it's the whole point. You don't know what the future holds. You don't know how it's going to change. I mean, like you said, 20, 30 years from now, are we going to be here? And if we are, probably the world won't look the same as it does now. You know.
But you guys are talking about putting money into a Roth, an IRA, putting money into all this stuff because, you know, in 30 to 60 years, when I'm an old man, when I'm 60, 70, 80 years, then I'm going to have all this money. It's like, so if I start giving my money right now, some kind of gay frog in my throat or something. Thanks to Alex Jones. Now I'm going to start sounding like Alex Jones. If I start putting my money away right now in these investments, and in hopes that I'm going to be rich in 30 to 60 years, I have to really truly believe in my heart of hearts that I'm going to be here in 30 to 60 years, and the world economic system is going to be doing what it's doing in 30 to 60 years. We've seen how much it changed just from 2019.
Well,
Imagine,
listen, I mean,
how do we know what's going to be financially, economically, in 30 years when I'm 60?
You bring up a really good point, but think about this. You seem to be one of the people that kind of keeps their finger on the pulse of what's happening in the world. I mean, it's pretty obvious by the show. I mean, you guys are paying attention to what's going on out there. So the thing is, you just try to be proactive. I mean, you can only do what you can do now with the information you have. I mean, everyone wants to try to predict the future, but you really can't, because who knows what's going to happen? I mean, that comet could have aliens on it, and it might land, and life could change for mankind irreversibly. Who knows? But the point is, we have to. I always say to somebody, you always know how bad a crisis is, whether or not when you get up in the morning, if you still have to pay your bills. And I think that's a good barometer. I mean, if no matter how bad things are getting, if you still have to pay your bills to keep your house, to keep your car, to keep food on the table, to keep the lights on, then it can't be that big of a crisis if you still have to do it. Now, the other important thing to keep in mind is keep your eyes on what's happening, which again, it seems like you guys do that. So if you have money in the banking system and it looks like things are going south for some reason, we're changing currency. The dollar is being, really devalued. Take it out. Take the money out of the bank if you think that's going to happen. See what's happening at the time. Is it worth buying precious metals if it looks like precious metals will somehow retain their value? A friend of mine is likes to say, "Listen, buy canned goods and bullets because it'll be currency of the future." So I don't know, but I think the important thing is keep your eyes open.
Did you buy?
Yeah.
Did you buy those? So I
have
know,
some,
well,
I have some
unofficial,
things
off
in
the record.
basement. Off the record. Hey, it's already been proven that this show is not off the record.
Yeah, right now it's definitely not off the record.
Somebody's listening. No, I mean, yeah, I have some stuff. I mean, I'm not a survivalist. I'm not a prepper, but yeah, I like to think I have at least a few weeks worth of canned goods down in the basement, and you know, a few other items. But yeah, but again, the trick is just trying to see what's happening. You stay low and try to stay out of the way of trouble, and just try to survive as best you can.
Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm actually living paycheck to paycheck right now. So we have to, me and my family of four, have to make a decision whether we're going to save up for a house. We're thinking of Trump's new plan. Just messing. I'm just messing. After 80 years, I won't be here anyway, so who cares?
Right, talking about the 50-year mortgage.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you want to get an 80-year mortgage. You want to worry.
No, but what I'm saying is, should we get another car because our car may break down? Should I get a house, save up for a house, or should I save up for my children's future to go to college and all this stuff that you were doing when you were my age, because those were real realities when you were my age, and my reality at my age, I can't give to all of these different futures. I can't give to any of them. We're barely making it. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to figure out. If I start giving to any of these future hopes, I'm going to have to pick one of them, and I'm going to have to really believe, because now my kids, we're all going to be sacrificing some food, maybe some toys for Christmas, for this future hope that we're going to be here in 30 to 60 years, and the same system is going to be working in 30 to 60 years. And if I'm thinking like this, I can't imagine what the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, I don't know what's going through their brain. But I know this is how I'm thinking right now. So I do tend to be, I guess as host says, a nihilist when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Very much the same way that you guys will say, like you said, I'm not a doomsday prepper. At least you're not on the level of some people out there.
Right.
Those people out there have tried to convince you of their dream. Like, you need to forget Bitcoin, forget gold. That's all going to burn. You need to sell everything you own and give it to your bunker. And you haven't done that, I imagine, because you have a different future in mind. So everybody has their faith in their future, and I'm saying I lack that faith.
And I really understand, and I'm just take this minute. Everybody hit that like. I appreciate that if you guys can hit that like button on this video. That's what's difficult for me, because I've known Colleague for a long time, and I've always tried to encourage the same thing for Colleague. The issue is, though, during that time frame, I have seen fluctuations through economical access. The same old adage: you need to have credit to get credit. You got to the accessibility now for FHA loans for lower income people is even more difficult. Of course, during that time, I didn't know them during the subprime loans, but that would have been a great time to take advantage of all that. But
well, I had a guy one time tell me, this is I think just a year or two ago. He was like, "Yeah, so here's what you do. You take your house right now.
Yeah, if you have a house.
Yeah, you divide it into two.
Right.
You rent out. You make it to where you can rent out one side of that, or at least house with somebody. Share a house with somebody. Share your house with somebody. Store up that rent, and then get another one, and then you just exponentially increase like that." And he was like, "That's what I did." And you look, you do this, and I was like, "I don't have a house. Never had one, and probably now will never have a house."
And that's what I was going to say. What's difficult is somebody like me. I got in, and I got a low interest rate. I got to refinance during COVID. That was great. Anybody who could do that. But I have a lot of equity. But that's credit. I have credit, so I can get credit. And so that's cool. My life is fine. but I still understand the depreciation of buying power inflation. So I'm finding ways to hedge the market, but I have access to capital to do such things. But my goal isn't me. I'm always trying to find ways to help those like the incarcerated, the felons, the poorer people, people that I know, they're going to be affected by this a lot more than me. And so what do I tell them? I can't tell you to buy gold at $4,000 an ounce.
Yeah.
I can't tell you to find a hedge market in bonds when the bond market is trash and we don't know how it's going to be manipulated because the trust of the dollar is all over the place. Of course, now we can say, oh, let's go to cryptocurrency, but that's just rug pulls. So where do we? Because he's younger than me. He's still a millennial, but he's younger than me. And it's like, what do I tell him now? Because I used to tell him things, but now I'm refraining from telling him these things because it's like I have a hard time even trusting in these old fundamental hedges on markets and investments in markets. And even the stock market right now is so overly, I'm waiting for a blow off top, but I have capital. So when the blow off top happens, what am I going to do? I'm going to reinvest at the bottom as low as I can. I'm going to dollar cost down, but I have capital to do that. What do I tell the young people? They're like, I'm just trying to start. I'm just trying to get in. I don't have a house to pull equity. I don't have stocks. I don't have this. What am I supposed to do? And all they're going to do is get the bottom of the shaft.
Yeah, and I'm not complaining. I'm just not ignorant or naive to my reality. I just entered the game of Monopoly too late.
And it's tough because what I used to say is very difficult for me to say now today. And I try to find alternate answers. Like I used to talk about definance, because in the definancing market, what you would do is buy stable coins, and stable coins would basically give you interest for holding those stable coins. It was basically like a bond, except it was higher interest, like 7, 9, 12% annually. And that was great. But now even the DeFi markets are starting to capitulate. And so at some point, where do I even advise the younger people to put their money? And then not only that, it's like, but what even extra money do they have?
Yeah. Yeah, my heart goes out to you, colleague, because when I was your age, I was in a very similar situation. I only had one child, but living paycheck to paycheck. And honestly, here it is 30 years later, and it's not that much different, to be honest with you. Yeah, I do own my own home. I own my vehicle. But, yeah, I mean, that income is still... It's tight, it's tight. You got to be careful what you're doing. We're not living the high life, but we're making it do. But my heart goes out to you because I see what you're saying. Like back 30 years ago, there were options. You could kind of save but you're right. Today, the economy is such a mess. What do you do? Like you said, you're looking to the future. What do you save for your kids' education? Do you save for a car? Do you save for a house? And either one you pick, you're kind of you're screwed. It's difficult. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have it. I don't really have advice with today's economy to tell you. The only thing I could say is, as far as the education is concerned, the way things are changing, fingers crossed, maybe the education system in another, I don't know how old your kids are, but, if they still have a couple of years to go before, the secondary education, maybe it'll change. Maybe there'll be a revolution and people will wake up and it'll be a different system. So you don't have to spend, like another mortgage on your house, put your kids through college, which is ridiculous. And they come out with a degree that's worthless. As far as the car is concerned, the problem with cars is they depreciate. You drive them on the road, and but if you need transportation, I don't know, what your situation is where you live, but fortunately on the East Coast here, we have a pretty good system of public transportation. So if I really had to do without a car, I wouldn't like it, but I could get by. I could get to places I need to get to. I don't know if you have that option. If you live in a place where you don't have public transportation, you need a car. So what do? And you want to keep a roof over your family's head. And I know that's difficult, because that's, yeah.
And so that's why the conversation...
I wish I had a better answer for you.
That's why when you hear the conversation tilt towards UBI, like somebody like me, I would say that's not the answer, but that's what I've always said, because I'm a big proponent for free markets. But believe it or not, I used to be radical, like a hardcore no regulation, free market person. But that's easy to say when the markets are pretty fluid and liquid. Nowadays, I'm having a big turn of thought. It's like we might need more regulations. We might need different means of trying to see income. And I'm still not a proponent of UBI, but then I ask myself, well, I can't disqualify their idea, the younger generation, of saying, well, if I could get some of this capital, if I could gain some of this access, if I could get the credit, the equity, maybe I could do some of the things that you guys did. But I can barely, if I don't have a two-source income today, I can't even pay my bills. Back in the day, you could live off of a single income. It's like, what are you going to do? And so I'm like, UBI, it sounds crazy, but then I'm like, is there another way to give them access?
Yeah, it levels the playing field a little bit. At least it gives you that certain needs are covered. So then once those needs are covered, you could put your energy into maybe, there's a person I know that is really big on UBI, and what they're saying is, yes, it would be great to have those basic needs, but then I can work to get more money to get the other things that I want, and that money can go to those. So you're right, host. It is kind of a good argument.
But it's hard because you said also earlier is where does it come from? Entitlement becomes the issue. If you don't re-educate people, if how you spend $1 is probably how you're going to spend $10,000. And so if people are only acclimated in the idea of short-term income, so I have short-term ideas of expenditure, then it doesn't matter how much supplemental income they have, it's still going to go to short-term expenditures. So unless there's an idea that this supplemental income, like UBI or something, has to go towards you can keep all your physical labor money, but this has to go towards, access to investment or access to other. It's here for you, but it's going to be utilized for your future investment. But still the problem becomes, what good is that if the hyper devaluation of the dollar? And it's like, even somebody like me, it's like, I even worry about that because it doesn't matter how much money you got. If the buying power of the dollar keeps collapsing because they keep over circulating, it doesn't matter. We're going back to the 30s where I'm going to come in with a basket of money and I'm buying a loaf of bread.
That's why right now it's good to hear my daughter tell me and reaffirm me, like, Daddy, I'm so glad we're not poor. I'm like, amen. It's because I make sure she has plenty of toys, and same with my son. They both have plenty of toys, and that's the whole idea. Is like, should I withhold those toys and make them and sell this pipe dream to them that don't worry, we're gonna do something with all this money that's gonna be useless in a few years, or should I just give them toys now and let them enjoy it? Because maybe there's gonna be a fix to the problem.
But that's the other issue is, if everybody's waiting for UBI, it only incentivizes people not to work more because it's like, well, I just need to wait it out. There's an economical quandary of this, but I'm not going to go into that. But basically, if somebody knows, it's the idea of deflation. If prices keep coming down, people just keep holding out longer because they're like, well, maybe next week it's going to be cheaper, or maybe next week it's even going to be more cheaper. So deflation only incentivizes more deflation because everybody's waiting to get the bottom. Everybody wants to buy at the bottom. And so if the younger generation say, well, if I just hold out, maybe I'll just get UBI. Why am I going to work real hard right now? Let me just hold out I'm doing okay. I'm barely making it. But if I just hold out another 5-10 years, maybe I'll just get the UBI, which de-incentivizes people to flood again the economy with more capital, which ultimately deflates the dollar even more. And so that's a harder problem is they're just incentivized to say, let me just wait it out.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, I've been working since I was like 11 years old, so I have a good work ethic, knowing that I'm not going to ever see anything that I'm working for. Yeah, and that's cool. You know what? I understand. Like, I know what my mentality would be if I was Ted's age. If I was older and I had a fighting chance, I know what I would be doing right now. I know exactly what I'd be doing. I have a whole plan.
Right.
But unfortunately, I cannot do it. It's not possible. Not in my current situation.
Yeah, see, that's good. You at least have you're like still a millennial, so you still have this quasi idea of work ethic and an ambition.
Well, millennials actually suck with work ethics.
Well, I know, but I'm saying you're still in that purview. But when you get to Gen Zs, it gets even more farther skewed. And then you get to the next one, Gen Alphas, is even farther skewed. And so then the ambition be, even if I gave somebody today $50,000, depending on your construct of ambition, what are you going to do with that $50,000? It's going to go to short-term expenditures because your hope is, well, I'll just enjoy this now because I'm going to get UBI later anyway. So if you don't change the construct of work initiatives and ambitions for the future, like if you don't make your future brighter, who's going to invest in the future? The future has to be worth investing into. So if the future looks like junk, it doesn't matter how much people have access to capital, they're just not going to invest in it because they're going to it's all going to burn anyway. So the future has to itself look like it's worth investing into. And we can't change that. That's something that the financial institution and the government has to work on. We can't change the outlook of our future.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that there's no fix to my problem. I've asked a few people, and I have an older friend. He's in his 70s, and he's a financial guy. He told me he doesn't know yet, but he's working on something. I don't know if how far along he is, and if he's even maybe he gave up. I don't know. But if you can think of anything, Ted, that I could start doing right now, like what should I be? And again, I'm going to ask though, how do you have the confidence for a 30 to 60 year plan? So if you tell me to invest in something, and if you can prove to me that we can confidently know the state of affairs in 30 to 60 years, then you got to convince me though.
Well, I think there's a big difference between 30 years and 60 years. But I mean, if you're in your like sort of mid 30s, you're 30, said you're 33, then like 60, I'm sorry, 30, 35 years will put you around retirement age, theoretically retirement.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know if it has to be even that long of a plan. I mean, even if you have a 5-year plan, and you can do something small, and then if you see some from fruit of that plan in 5 years, then at least that gives you some confidence to maybe do the next 5 years. And maybe if that's too much, do a year, and it doesn't, as far as saving or whatever. I mean, again,
how much you're going to have to invest up front to see fruit in 5 years or in 1 year. Yeah. In 30 years, you can invest like $2 here and $2 there, but to see something in 5 years, I'm going to have to invest a lot.
Well, the quandary also for younger people is emergency. Like, that's the other problem. It's like, so you save some and it's doing well, but then you have an emergency like a car malfunction or, who knows what. And now that little bit that you've been saving has been doing well, it's gone. And that even frustrates the young people even more to say, why am I even doing all of this? Because emergencies happen all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of emergencies, we just had our hot water heater blow out on Sunday. It was like, oh, that's great. Now, again, thankfully, it was under warranty. That was such a blessing because, like, a hot water heater, labor to put it in and everything, a couple $1,000s. And you're right, what little savings we have, that would have really hurt us. And so we're lucky it was under warranty. But I know what you mean about those emergencies.
This is why I still believe in small business. I still believe there's opportunity for that, but the problem is even small businesses' incentives now is for myself. Like when I was starting, and I was a lot younger, the ambition was, of course, but I'm young. I could take a lot of risk. If I lost everything when I was in my 20s, who cares? I'll start over. That's fine.
Yeah.
But the idea of my loss then was easily, in my mind, I could recoup because access to the financial system was a lot more accessible. SBA loans were a lot more easier. Everything was a lot more different in the structure. Today, even if and that's why it's still useful because if you can have a small business with the idea of if more people that had capital and had a little bit of wealth could build businesses in the idea to enhance the accessibility for younger generations, this could make a positive outlook for future generations to say, well, at least there's more people like this. There's more small businesses that are doing this. But then it becomes quasi-socialist, and that's where it becomes a difficulty. It's like, I'm not doing this to maximize capital or profits. I'm actually going to try to break even or make a little bit so the company can grow, but most of the distribution of profits are going to be going to the workers because I want them to have a better future. But again, this is why I say solutions are real, but solutions are going to require heavy sacrifices from the upper class of people. And if they're not willing to do that, there's just no solution for the lower people. You're going to have to do something that causes you to say, I can't be absolutely capitalistic now, because if I am, and that's hard, even me saying it sounds taboo, but if I don't do that, if people don't do that, there's absolutely no incentive for the young people because the future just doesn't look hopeful.
Well, I mean, yeah, creating a hopeful future then, I mean, I don't know. Man, every time I come across problems like this, I keep saying to myself, if we could just turn off the internet and stop all this information getting to people, because I'll tell you, we're making I feel like we're creating this by constantly throwing out all this bad news. I mean, it doesn't matter what source of information. You hop on the internet, hop on Facebook, hop on any social media, turn on the TV, pick up a newspaper if you can find one. It's all bad news. The world is ending. The world's terrible. There's wars. There's political problems. There's, it's just like problem after problem after problem. No one wants to say, you know what? It's going to be okay. We'll figure it out. Human beings have been around for thousands and thousands of years. We've had tough times, but we'll figure it out somehow. Yeah, you're right. Hope. I feel like hope is gone, and I feel like media is projecting that there's no hope. Is that because they want to? The powers that be want to control everyone? Because once you have no hope, you'll buy into anything.
That's exactly what I believe. I believe that the government, if you study the government, it's always been using propaganda, but now, especially with the last two administrations, their emphasis on you need to watch the news every day. You need to tap in every single day. There's something going on, breaking news happening every second. And they want you to stay tuned into this so you can keep on hearing there's no hope. So government is our savior. What are you going to do, government?
Well, you can't have one without the other. So we can't, if you get rid of news, you're not going to know what's going around, like real things that are happening, which maybe that's a good thing.
But how do you know what's real and not anymore?
The one thing that's really going to suffer is the medical community. That's something that everybody cares about.
Yeah.
Doctors are going to lack technology. They're going to lack internet connection to this technology to save more lives.
So why don't you just moderate it that way?
The
people who are experts and in the field that need access to it, they have more access than they are. But then
see,
again, it's back to regulations again.
That's
I know.
it.
I hate
that's
that. I hate the concept of regulations. But it makes me say, I don't know how you fix this without regulations.
We're all going to love it here soon.
It's so stupid.
There's no way around it. I don't know how to get around that
system is
idea.
built this way.
The other thing I was going to say also was, I know you're a religious man, Ted. Most religious texts talk about doomsday and an apocalyptic event. So yes, bad news sells best in the media, but for religious textbooks, Bibles and stuff, they're not. Well, and people are selling them, but when they were originally written, they weren't being sold. And they were saying that bad things are going to happen to this earth in the end.
Yeah. By the way, if somebody did want a Bible, you could go to your local church. I'm sure they'll give you one for free. They'd be happy to. Yeah. I mean, I derive my hope from my faith. So it's to me, it's a gift. Because I say no matter how bad it gets in this world, on this earth, I know there's something better waiting, something much better.
Well, what does the Bible say about the end of the earth itself? and the timing of that.
Yeah, well, that's the trick. There is no actual timing. Jesus himself said that no one will know the hour and the date when I return. So all these people that have been trying to predict this for thousands of years, they're not going to get it. All their predictions are false. Christ is going to return when he wants to return, and no one knows when that is. It could be 5 minutes from now. It could be 5 million years from now. We don't know. We don't know. But all you can do is live your life as best you can. And one of the things I was going to add, and it's not necessarily a religious thing. When we take care of the people around us, we take care of the people in our neighborhood. Sometimes we get wrapped up when we look at what's happening in the country and in the world. But the bottom line is, what can we do to affect that? We have an impact on the people in our home. We have people, impact on people on our street, in our neighborhoods. Even go as far as maybe your town or city. But that's, I think, where we need to kind of start when you think about. Yeah, we have to look out for ourselves, but I don't think it's going to do any good unless we're looking out for our neighbor too.
Well,
and again, it doesn't. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, what were you going to say, Collie? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Host has been taking care of all kinds of widows. I think he was saying earlier he's been helping a lot of widows lately.
Look,
so
what you type into is very important in my mindset too. And it's not a religious thing. I don't think you have to be religious at all. But I think the forsaking idea of communities and social awareness is abstract now. It's a philosophical thought of nicety, but it's not a reality. And again, back to the people who have a little. What can they really do? Of course, if everybody gave $1, then that dollar turns into a large thing. But when $1 is so scarce, it's tough. And of course, any religious text or religious idea would say, well, sacrifice, give a little. But it's very hard for people to say, well, I will, but what about you? Or what about the people who have so much? And so this abstractness of communities and individualities, this dichotomy, is so wide now that I do believe that. It's like if religious institutions would go back into why they were a 501c3, if they're actually enforcing the construct of being the charitable arm of the government, to say the reason why you get tax exemption is because you're supposed to do the outreach of those who are struggling. And that's
right.
Why we're saving tax dollars so we don't have to do it and have bureaucracy. You can do it because you know your community is better than we do. So go out there and really tap into your community and help them instead of trying to maximize your growth of numbers. But you need to distribute that access and that capital because that's the reason why we're not taxing you. If those religious institutions would do that, yeah, maybe that would supplement some of this financial struggle, which then, of course, that would give access and more capital to poor people who are struggling. Now, will that change the mindset? No. It's still not going to change the idea of short-term expenditure. But at least they will be doing what we're not receiving tax revenue from these institutions, and there's a lot of money being benefited from tax exemption. And we're not benefiting as a society as a whole if they're not supplementing the needs of their community. And yeah, I do agree we need to tighten up on that. There needs to be more regulation on 501c3s.
Yeah, so
no,
I
agree.
Oh, go ahead.
Good. Well, I was just going to say that if they're a legitimate religious organization, then they are contributing. They're being charitable because that's the calling. And it's not just Christianity. I think all faiths are called to be charitable. If you're profiting from any religion, then it's not a legit religion. It's a scam. And I know that there are Christian churches out there, unfortunately, that give Christians a bad name because that's exactly what they're doing. The pastors are living in these mansions. They have several homes. They go on these vacations. That's not what it's supposed to be about. And I do question the legitimacy of those organizations, but legitimate churches, and some of them are very tiny churches that don't have a lot of congregations, but I know people give from their heart, and I know the pastors are making sure that money is going back into the community and those that need it.
Don't you think it's interesting that you can see the dispersion of wealth, even in religious institutions. You have poorer churches or poorer religious institutions, because it could be anything. You can have an atheist group that's 501c3. And
Sure.
you have these religious institutions, and you see the poorer ones being more effective in their communities. But you see the larger ones. And of course, there's not like a total encapsulation. Of course, there's always outliers. But just like in the normal function of economical society, you have the more wealthy individuals being very careful with the way they distribute their money, and they're very questionable on, should I legitimately give you this, because you need to fill out this paper, we're going to fill out this, we need to figure out this, are you a scam, but poorer religious institutions, they're just more freely giving. And so you would see the same thing. If I see people who are more struggling, I see them saying, oh, hey, there's this guy on the side of the road like, hey, man, you have any money for a beer? You have any money for a cigarette? Can I bum a cigarette? People are like, oh, yeah, because they're poor too.
You see the same thing in the tip world.
Yeah.
Like rich people usually don't give any tips, or they give very tiny tips. Mm-hmm. It's the poor people that give like 15, 10. They give too much for a tip.
Right, because they can relate with that struggle. But that's what I'm saying. It's like there has to be something here that causes this barrier to be restricted. Because if not, this is only going to get perpetually. It's going to just get worse and worse and worse. Because if you even see religious institutions, which there's always been outliers who have always manipulated the system. But if you see it growing more and more and more, then eventually what happens is, and it's only going to become a more bigger problem. When there's more people with less money, there's going to be more people asking for help. But the more people you have asking for help, you're going to have more religious institutions saying, I need to validate your need for help, which then only creates a bigger cycle of saying, I don't know if I'm going to help you, because we don't know if there's just too many of you. Yeah, and we don't know if you're scamming or not.
A lady that was calling around asking for baby formula. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example. But the reason I brought it up, the Bible and I guess they're different, but when you say we need to just turn off the news and then we may have a brighter outlook on the future, if let's say we just turn off the news and we just stuck our nose in the Christian Bible, we're still I'm going to come out with the same idea, like, oh, well, things are going to look grim in the end anyway, or at minimum just stay the same. But it doesn't seem like it. Go ahead.
Well, the bonus about that, and again, this is coming from a person of faith. If you do put your nose in the Bible and start reading it, yeah, it does talk about doom and gloom at the end, but it also it says there's an alternative.
I get that. What I'm talking about is the money, though. Like, if I'm going to start investing for my kids' future here on Earth, why would I want to do it? Like, look at what happened with the Jehovah's Witnesses when they were all believing that Christ was going to come back. Was it 1973 or 1978? I can't remember exactly. I actually did a study on that at one point in time. I can't remember now, but millions of them left after that. But up until that point, though, they weren't having children. They were selling their investments, their stocks that they owned. They were selling it all. They were becoming poor because they thought this was the end. And that's the mentality that the Christian, whether you're Jehovah's Witness or not, I'm not saying that they're Christian, but that's the mentality that you're going to walk away from when you, like, in this world. Like, so I'm good eternally. What does that have to do with my physical life here?
Right, and part of the problem is we've been talking about finances, we've been talking about economics, which is, it's important. It's what you need to survive in this world. But what we haven't really been talking about is the emotional and mental state that people are in as well, that can affect your quality of life. You can be poor. I mean, I know people that are poor, but they're happy. Like, you meet them and they don't bring you down. They build you up. They ask you, hey, how you doing? And they just, isn't this a beautiful day? And yes, money's important, but I don't, I don't think money will give you security, but it won't necessarily give you happiness. And I guess what I was saying when I said take care of your neighbors, your family, your neighbors, your neighborhood, it doesn't always have to be money. Because again, if you're poor, what do you have to give to your neighbor who's poor? Your time, your attention, your thoughts. Go over and just say hi. Have a conversation with them. Try to uplift them. Try to think of something good that's happening. I think if we all started doing that, I can't help but think that it would start bringing up the psyche of our society, and we would stop walking around thinking that everything is bad. If at least we started treating one another, at least the people in our neighborhoods, at least, and maybe it would grow. I don't know, but I mean, when I'm out in public, I, you know, I always try when I come in contact with someone to just try to leave them with their day. Hopefully, their contact with me makes their day a little better than worse. And that's the philosophy I try to live with. And even if it's just a hi, a smile, a little quib, a joke, my jokes are terrible, but if it puts a smile on someone's face, especially if they're having a miserable day, it make all the difference. And you don't know what that person's going through. You know, um, I think our society has become so self-centered. It's all about me. How am I pleased? How am I entertained? What's in it for me? How do I get more? And it's moving away from look across the street and see what your neighbor, what kind of shape are they in? I'm sorry, I'll get off my milk carton now.
No, that's fine.
I feel kind of strongly about this, but I think it plays a role. Our mental state and it's important.
This is actually why I think political talk and religious talk and financial talk, I guess, is very important. Like, I understand why you go to work and they tell you the two things you don't talk about is politics and religion, because they're so divisive. And there's a reason for that. It's because, you're talking politics, how you vote may or may not affect your life for the next 4 years until the next term. So you should probably take that seriously. And that's why people do get so emotional with politics. Then when you go to religion, now we're not just talking about 4 years, we're talking about an eternity. So if it's legitimate, then people should get emotional about that. People should be dogmatic about that, because that's not just 4 years. That's actually eternity. Even if it's fake, it's still eternity. You're going to be dead forever, or you're going to be alive forever. So it makes a lot of sense why it's so divisive. There's a reason for that, and I think we can't really escape that.
You know what's interesting, though? You can take the same narrative and apply it in a secular sense. See, if you're picturing a future eternity or a future positive outlook, then what happens is you start having a work ethic or an incentivized motivation for that objective. So maybe you stop caring about so much about worldly or financial or stuff, and you put all your energy towards that, because what you're saying is the future that I am pushing towards is hopeful. And so therefore that gives you incentive to be motivated to push towards that future motivation. In a secular sense, it's the same way. If my future outcome looks hopeful, I will be motivated and incentivized to actually invest into this future, and I will work just as hard as a religious person may for their future. But if my future outlook looks horrible and I don't see any hope in that, then I'm not going to push toward that. No different with a religious person. If they start seeing that what they've been hearing preachers or people say, and these things are not real, they've been talking about charity, they've been talking about love, they've been talking about X, Y, Z, but they see that this is hypocrisy. And of course, everybody's a hypocrite, so I'm not trying to go down that road. But what I'm saying is, however you see the future outlook, if it's not positive, the incentive to strive for that future, regardless what it is going to decline, and eventually you will become some form of nihilistic idea. It's not going to what colleague is saying is not so much abstract. It's just the fundamentals of a secular nihilism. It's like he doesn't see there's a lot of hope out here in this world. So what's incentivizing him? He's asking, tell me, what should I do? You want me to be so positive out here in this world, but where's the hope in that? And if he doesn't see that hope, then what incentivizes him to invest in this future?
Well, let me clarify just a little bit. I don't have a hopeless future. I'm not saying I'm hopeless and
I wasn't trying to imply that in absolute sense.
I'm also responding to Noah Cloud's comments too.
Okay.
And I appreciate that, Noah Cloud. So I'm saying if you guys, because you guys are talking finances, and I wish I can join the conversation. You guys are talking about.
I'm trying to talk about it in a sense that's universal. Like, we need to think about the struggle of the average person as much.
Well, before
because
that,
if not, then there is nothing that I don't know what to tell you.
Before that, yeah, you guys are talking about finances and everything.
Right.
I was like, I'd love to join this conversation. I just don't have any financial sentiment.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I'm just saying, like, what can someone like me do? And that's why I was asking you guys
But
both.
That's a fair question.
Yeah. What can I do to have that financial future, with or without it? I'm good. I don't really care. I'm happy. My family's happy, and all that.
But that's because you have an alternate future that you can invest in. That's what you would see. If you have let's picture a secular individual who doesn't have a spiritual outlook on anything, they're just dead. That's what I'm saying. That's real absolute nihilism, because if you don't have a separate anticipation, then you're going to say, well, this one looks really trashy. And if I don't have some alternate form, then I'm just dead. I'm dead as a doorknob. Now, people could say, well, you just need to help your society. But if everything seems to be hopeless in what you're seeing in this reality, then, yeah, it's like, why should I even try?
I have a close friend of mine who's an atheist, flat out atheist. He does not believe there's anything after death. And I ask him, well, if you believe this is all there is, like, how do you get through that? Like, how do you deal with all the pressure and everything, and thinking that things are so bad, the environment, everything? And he said, if this is all there is, then I have a duty to try to leave the earth in a better shape than when I entered it. He's like, as a human being in this society and part of civilization, that's my duty. I have to do that. And that's his morality. He's not a religious person, but he believes in humanity, basically, and that it's his responsibility to try to make things better.
How does he not get callous? Because it's tough when things get harder out here in this world. You end up saying, I'm going to plant this seed for the good of humanity. And you're hoping to reap something from this tree that you're planting. But then all you see is people making fun of you, stealing from you, taking this. It can be the government or people. It don't matter. And eventually you start getting callous, because it's like, I'm trying to do the best I can for humanity. But it doesn't seem like anybody else cares, which then forces you back into nihilism again.
Well, I imagine oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please, go ahead.
Well, it's your friend. I don't want to speak on his behalf.
Well, I was going to say that I think that boils down to individuals. It's how you deal with that. I mean, there are people that can be broken by things that other people would brush off. And I think that has to do, I mean, what is there? How many billion of us in this world? And we're all individuals. We all handle things differently. We all have different levels of handling stuff, pressure. I mean, you look at some people going through things in their lives and you think, how in the world are they still going? It's like every time they turn around, there's something else, but they just keep going. And there's other people that fall apart because their coffee order was wrong in the morning. It's ruined their whole day. So it boils down to individuals and how they cope with these things. I think my friend just happens to have a very strong will that it's like he wants to just keep trying. And I don't know, maybe eventually there's something that will break him, and I hope not, but everyone does have their breaking point.
This is why I think communities are so important. It doesn't matter if it's secular or religious. If you don't have some form of encouragement, some form of a group of people that have the same mindedness, then eventually you can only do so much, even as an individual, because you just feel isolated and you feel like I'm the only one doing it. Well, that's not true, but because you don't have this community to recycle the thoughts that, no, there's a bunch of people trying to do the same thing, regardless if it's religious or secular. If you don't have that community, eventually you will get burnt out and feel like I'm the only one trying this. But then again, that's also the problem, is that we, in today's society, we don't emphasize on physical communities. Everything's digitalized. And behind a keyboard, everybody can be a gangster. Everybody can be pious. Everybody can be righteous. Everybody can be something behind a keyboard. But until you're actually out there and physically doing something with physical people, dealing with somebody who has physical needs right now, and you have to do something now because you're not behind a keyboard, you're not going to be able to react in a genuine way. I mean, like anybody, you can tell somebody, hey, man, I hope your life goes well for you, and you leave and you never take care of anything they need because you're behind a keyboard. And so the problem is there's not none, but the lack of the emphasis of physical community is actually a problem, another problem.
Absolutely. And I would say to folks, if you don't have family that you can turn to, if you don't have a organization that you belong to that you can turn to, like a church or whatever, secular organization, and if you don't have any friends, try to get out there and find at least one person that maybe you have something in common with that you can sit and maybe just have a cup of coffee with and just chat. It'll make a world of difference, because when you're by yourself, you're in your head, and your head can really mess with you. But if you have another individual that you can at least talk to and communicate with, you can bounce ideas off of them. You can talk to them. And maybe you just don't feel quite so alone. So, yeah, my advice to folks out there, if you're listening, reading, whatever, and if you do feel alone, just try really hard. Get out there and try to find somebody. If you have an interest, if you like books, maybe you go to a bookstore. If you like games, go to a game store. Whatever the case may be.
The
Just
social
try, give it a shot.
awkwardness, I think people struggle with, and then they get embarrassed, they say the wrong thing, and then they never want to hang out with that individual again. And it's really tough because it's self-capitulating. Is that the right word? I don't know. But they're awkward because they don't go outside and talk to other human beings. They only talk on the keyboard, like Host was saying. And then when they do come in and have coffee, if they, by some off chance, two Gen Zs or Gen Alphas went to a bookstore or a coffee shop, they would feel so awkward around each other. They would feel like they said the wrong thing, even though they didn't. But awkwardness is like Satan in their view. I welcome awkwardness. Like that's what makes this show funny, because we purposely say awkward things. I think that's what made the Office show so funny, is awkwardness. But I think that's a dying breed, that mindset. But also, I was going to say, Coin McDuck said, I do believe that all atheists should read the Bible. How can they be an atheist if they don't know any background of the Bible, except what was only told what it says? I was going to respond to that. I'm not an atheist, or I wouldn't even say I'm an agnostic. Honestly, I have my own beliefs. But there are atheists there's actually an atheist Bible out there. I got it years ago. It's actually pretty cool. Some atheists read the entire Bible and made comments and contradictions throughout the whole Bible. But you can tell it's pure ignorance. You can tell the guy doesn't care. Things that he was saying contradicted weren't real contradictions. And I was like, it just seemed like a big mockery type thing. But he spent some money on this thing. It was a nice Bible. It's just King James. He didn't have to pay any copyright prices or anything. But so atheists do read the Bible. They just, like you said, I guess, they just don't understand, nor do they care to. They'll respect the Egyptian Book of the Dead more than they will the Bible. And I think it's to counter what usually these people have some kind of trauma with religious experience in America, because everybody in America has heard of Jesus and John 3:16 and everything. So they hear it so much, they grow up and they want to be different and be cool, or they were hurt by religious people, so now they're just going to go everything against it, specifically Christian religious people. Because like I said, they'll read the Hindu scriptures or the Egyptian scriptures, and they'll actually respect it as legitimate. But then when they read that one, they're very biased, unfortunately.
Yeah, it becomes a tough thing, because it doesn't matter who you are and what you believe in, or anything. Everybody at some point, unless of course you were born in a wealthy family or some such, everybody needs help in some sense, and that should be the main emphasis of community. And I think that's just downplayed now. Like even now, the government wants to restrict protesting in some sense or another. And of course, you can make arguments. Well, some are radical; they have agendas, but like, who cares? It's free speech as long as they're not inciting violence and they're not hurting people. And I even go through. I've talked about it before. Even protesting today, after I would say at least after 1870, it's all a propaganda machine anyway, because you have to get a permit. You have to have regulated formats of protest. 1776, they were protesting the Boston Tea Party. They were protesting, but they didn't care about regulative protests. They were trying to say, "Hey, taxation without representation, I'm not with that." And they would make it clear, "Well, this is a protest, and that's fine, and that's free speech." And I say, let it be. Now, again, I'm going to say, yeah, in today's society, people are a lot more conservative in the sense of how they want to see protests. But even that, it's like, if we can't, what I'm trying to say is even the government is trying to restrict collectiveness. Mm-hmm. They don't even want you to gather together and protest. Mm-hmm. So now you have to go have these clandestine operations, like maybe you're going to join Antifa, or maybe you're going to join, something else, who knows what. And it's like, that's just a fruit of restricting of speech and restricting of freedom of expression. If you want to minimize clandestine things, let people be free to express their opinions and thoughts, and let people have the ability to be collective and give and encourage community. But the more you try to restrict it, even on a federal level, you're only going to create more radical, clandestine, sleeper cells, whatever you want to call them. And so if you don't even have the government emphasizing community, that, to me, what that points to, the government wants you to see them as the savior. They want you to say, everybody else, it's wrong. I have the answers. Depend on me. I can do it. I can fix it. Hey, we got Stargate, AGI's coming. We're going to fix all this. Maybe UBI, maybe not. Hey, but we got the answers. Stop all this other stuff. Stop the protesting. Stop all this talk. Stop all these communities. You need to look to us. We got the answers. And I'm like, okay, if you got the answers, what are you going to do? I don't know. We're working on it. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm back to my communities. Oh, no, don't do that. And so it's just a weird quandary, because back, 40, 50 years ago, nobody had a problem. The government would encourage communities, and government would say, yeah, go to your local religious institution, go join a whatever club and do whatever, go out there and protest, whatever. But that's looked down upon now. Even protesting's looked down upon.
Even Protestants.
Protestants, yeah.
Did you have any comments on Coin McDuck's comment?
What did he say?
The one that I read off, atheists reading the Bible and the background of the Bible and all that. Yeah,
well, I mean, how do you know, unless you learn for yourself and read for yourself, how can you make an opinion on something? I mean, how do you say something's bad unless you've experienced it or learned about it? Echoing someone else's opinion just creates an echo chamber, and it doesn't help anyone. I mean, you have to, if you want to disagree with something, learn about it. Make sure that your beliefs in disagreement are, they're in fact. And honestly, I'm not the type of person that will, like, if someone of a different faith wants to sit down and talk to me about it, I'm open to it. Like, I'm curious to hear what your beliefs are, or how you think about things. But as long as there's a respect, and that's the thing that we're lacking in discourse right now, is respect, and especially politically. I don't even want to get started about the right and the left and the total lack of respect as far as debate. But I think it's important for people, especially from different, like, I don't want to sit all the time and just talk to people that have my faith. Yeah, it's interesting. We can encourage each other and build up. But I want to talk to people that don't. I want to talk to people that have a different faith. I want to learn. People don't have faith, atheists. That's why my friend who's an atheist, we have hour-long discussions together because we're curious about each other. He wants to know why I believe, and I want to know why he doesn't. But we never get angry. We never get heated. It's respectful. So yeah, to answer that, yeah, you should read the Bible. You don't, know what you're disagreeing with.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I was going to read his comment there, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, I I've mentioned this a few times before, but I have a lot of respect for the Christian Bible and the Jesus of the Christian Bible, because comparative to the other religions I've looked at, this guy had some real, somehow prophetic power. Him and later recipients of his message. So, but my struggle has been I can't find Christians today who also agree with that. Like and that's been my struggle. So it's like, okay, I found something that's very interesting to me. Seems pretty solid in history, but I can't find people. I don't know. I'm just repeating myself, but
No, I know what you're saying. I understand. It's that authenticity. You want to meet someone who isn't. We used to joke around. It's like, well, why are you Catholic? I'm Catholic because I was born Catholic. It's like that's not a reason for being a religious person. I mean, it has to be about belief, not just how you grew up or whatever the case is. And it's looking for that authenticity. It's looking for someone who doesn't just say they're religious or say they have faith. You can tell. Like there's a way that people are genuine and authentic. And
well,
unfortunately,
to clarify,
yeah.
what I mean is just a couple of big ones. When I was an Uber driver back in the day, I'd get people in my car saying, America needs to go back to the Bible in which it stands and all that. And I would ask them, does the Bible have errors in it? And then they would say, well, of course, if you understand how the translating process happened and all. And I'm like, yes, I understand how all that stuff happened. But it's strange. Like, so, and then I ask them, well, why would you want America to go back to a textbook that's full of errors and allegedly needs to be updated or whatever, according to you? And you're the one telling me that we should all get back to this errored textbook. And not you, Ted. I'm saying these people in my Uber.
Absolutely.
I've had other people tell me, Jesus was wrong. He thought he was going to come back, in that first century time period, as seen in these what they call the Olivet discourses. And to me, it seems like that's the case. It seems like he did, and then I can see some things that he said were going to happen in history. I see the some possible 1-to-1 fulfillments in history. But then when I relay that to Christians, they say no. He didn't come back yet. He's coming back in the future. And that's where I'm like, well, it seems like he's saying if we let the text speak for itself, the historicity of it, like if we look at the background of what he's actually saying there, it seems like he's saying he's going to come back in the first century. I just can't get people to see that. I guess it's not just my opinion either. Like there's a lot of historical scholars that see that. They just say he's wrong. I would say, well, you should read other textbooks, other historical literature outside of the Bible, and you can see that things happened. Weird, mysterious things happened after he said that they would.
I would say that any Christian that says that the Bible is wrong, I mean, I hope I don't want to offend anyone by saying this, but in my opinion, I don't think they're following the correct path of Christianity, because I mean I think there's certain core elements to being a follower of Christ, which is what Christianity is. And one of them is the fact that you believe that the Bible's the Word of God and it does not contain errors. Now I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Ted, you're crazy. I mean, there's plenty of contradictions in there. That's why it's important to study the Bible. And there are Christians that have been studying the Bible for decades, and they're still trying to wrap their heads around it. I mean, it is not a simple book. It's a complex book, and it's meant to be studied. I mean, the idea of Christianity is that you study that book for the rest of your life, every day for the rest of your life, because you will always learn and see things in it. It's not a textbook. It's not a manual. It's a religious book that's meant. It's meant to show people a certain way of life.
What sets it
And-
above other religious scriptures to me is the predictive power that it had in its day. Like, again, just going back to those Olivet discourses, you see Jesus' response to his disciples when they ask him, when are you coming back? And he says, he circles it around the timing of the destruction of that temple. The temple that they're oohing and awing over. And he said, you like this? Well, not one stone's going to be left on you. I'm sure you know the passage very well. Yep. And then they ask him, when are these things going to be? And his response is all of this stuff that follows. The famines, the earthquakes, love growing cold, all this stuff. If you read Josephus, all of this stuff happens. If you read Tacitus actually records these things happening. Again, coincidentally, all around the temple destruction. But getting a Christian to acknowledge that is weird. And I'm like, I can see this weird thing. How did this Jesus guy, if he's just a man, how did he know that these things were going to happen 30 to 40 years before they happened? Mm-hmm. This isn't just like, I'm going to predict, something bad's going to happen in the future. These were great details. In the Gospel of Luke, he says the armies are going to surround Jerusalem. And when they do, you need to go run. Don't go inside and go grab your cloak. Don't do any of that. Just go run.
So What does all this have to – how does somebody – but see, this is what I was talking about earlier. But that leads us to the abstraction between the here and now and whatever this positive future is. So you guys could talk about that, but then you guys can say, well, if the world burns, who cares? And I'm still left here with, but there's people hurting right now. There's people literally hungry right now. There's people suffering right now. People need help right now. So you can talk about all this stuff, and I'm like, that's cool, but that's because you believe in a future that's abstract, that's non-material. And I'm like, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that, and that gives you the ambition to do that.
I was going to say, we're talking about the motivation.
But for that, right, this abstract.
For helping anybody. Why would you help anybody outside of yourself? What is the motivation for that?
Well, for that's what I would say. Even for a religious person, they have a split motivation. They have one for, there's me and the people here, but then you see religious people having the same problem. It's like, I'm going to emphasize on my group. And now we're back to tribalism, and then it's like that group, and I don't know about that group because it's very rare I hear them talking about humanity. It's my religious institution, my church, my tribe, my group, and these are the people I'm going to help. But then I'm going back to, it's like, okay, so what about the people here and now? What about how do you help these people? So to me, it's like it doesn't matter if these things are true or not, as in being – unless I'm thinking about the abstraction. Like if I'm thinking about there is
it matters to me.
Well, I get that, but that's what I'm trying to say is if there's a future hope that's non-material, then I understand why non-material incentives are there, and that will truly motivate you. But if there's a material reality, how does that help you help the material reality? Like the people here, the money, the issues, the struggles, all that.
Because if the Bible is
Hold on one second. I think
Oregon Bro.
we can see you here right here.
Oregon Bro's coming.
Oregon Bro's here. Let me bring you in. 1 second. Go ahead. You can talk while I bring him in.
I was going to say if the religious books like the Christian Bible specifically is true, if it does have some kind of predictive power that I've seen that I haven't seen in any other ancient texts, even the what's that famous one everybody quotes from? Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of, even the Sibylline oracles, there's a lot of religious texts that claim to have predictive power, but they simply don't. At least you can't trace it in history. There's one that I know of all the different scriptures I've read across all these different religions, there's only one that I've seen with actual real predictive power that has historical documented fact by people that did not agree with that religious affiliation. Tacitus was not a Christian. He was a Roman historian. Josephus was a Jewish historian, obviously did not like Jesus and his disciples. And they unknowingly are somehow recording historical events that seem to correlate with exactly what this Jesus guy was saying. If that's the case, then what Jesus is saying about taking care of the needy, this all of a sudden applies. Like, I would be more quick to apply what Jesus is saying than I would Confucius or Marcus Aurelius. And that's just me. I can't speak for everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jesus did say love your neighbor. He didn't say love your Christian neighbor. He said love your neighbor. Regardless, just love your neighbor. So, I mean, that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good advice.
I was trying to make your face fit the box, but I
Hey,
can't
buddy,
make it perfect.
what you're getting in there is, sorry, my son's 3, and everything, he's trying to figure out how everything works.
Well, go ahead. What do you want to chime in on this, Mr. Oregon Bro?
You gotta get off the chair.
So
I think Ted was responding to you saying...
Oh, go ahead, Ted. I was trying to chime him in. What were you saying, Ted?
I think the last thing I said was just that, Jesus said in the Bible, love your neighbor. He didn't say love your Christian neighbor. He said love your neighbor, regardless of who they are.
Right. And if that was in practice and done in that sense, I don't think. I think a lot of that's why I was saying in my very early statements, if that community essence, especially we'll just talk about religious institutions, 501c3 contributions, if that could be utilized in a larger sense, and if you're talking about feeding your neighbor and all of that, that'd
Absolutely,
be great. Yeah. That'd be wonderful, and I'm sure that would help a lot of people, regardless what they believe in. If it's just your neighbor, if it's literally anybody and everybody in need, that's great. But when it becomes isolative to just tribalism, like my church or my religious institution or my group or my lodge or whatever it is, then it's like, well, sure, you can help those people, but then it's just back to exclusiveness. And now if you take this to the far extreme, I wanted to respond to Mr. McDuck because he was talking about homeschool on the rise and homelessness is seen downplayed upon like in Japanese culture. And that was like, well, that's a cultural narrative, which is now the culture sees a high work ethic in Japan. Like they literally want you to work nonstop. And homelessness, even in Korea, if you see a homeless person, they better be severely handicapped or have limbs missing or something, because if we see a homeless person, we're going to offer them a job on the spot. And if you don't work, that's why you're seen as shunned in the community, because you literally are lazy. It's not a lack of opportunity. But if you come to America, the idea of, and this is hard because the idea between enablement comparative to actual struggle and difficulties is hard to deal with, because once people get adapted to, because you have a capitalistic society says, if you want to be homeless, you can be. If you want to make a lot of money, you can. It's up to you, and you can do whatever you want, and you're incentivized to do either. But then if we give the enablement of the lack of work, then what happens is people just habituate to that and say, well, why should I work? I don't have to, because now I have the government subsidizing my lack of contribution to the economy. So the culture itself in America is emphasizing, yes, we're massively capitalistic, but it also incentivizes by saying we're going to supplement this bottom tier. But at the same time, we're left with, well, what does that do for the rest of us? And so it gets really complicated because you have this mishmash of we want to be charitable, we want to help people, but at the same time, we give opportunities for people to lack the incentive to contribute to the economy. But now we have to focus on how do we deal with this, because our economy itself is starting to take a downfall. So you have multiple layers of conflict here. And so I would say, yeah, if the churches or communities or religious institutions would emphasize on that more, then yeah, that'd be great. But the problem is I don't see that on a wide enough scale to make an effect.
The only thing I can add to that, and I want to give Oregon Bro his time. I know we've talked a lot. I belong to a couple different churches, and I can tell you that the churches that I've been involved with have been charitable to the community in general, not just specifically, our church or Christians. It's always been, an outreach to everyone. So I just want to reassure you that there are churches out there that do that. It's unfortunate you're not seeing more of it, which is disappointing, but they're out there.
Well, only reason I'm saying that, and I'll let you just say whatever, Mr. Oregon, is that because that is a concern of mine, because there are people like Colleague, which I like I said, I've known Colleague for a long time, and I do, and it's always been this way for me, trying to help those people who I know are trying to do something, but they just lack either access or resources, which you can say is the same, but mainly access and resources. So you try to find a means for that. But the issue becomes there has to be a larger scale of this. And yes, if religious institutions would do that, then that'd be easy. Well, I could even help contribute to that. If I knew a religious institution or any institution was actually doing that, I could give sums of money to that and say, I know that's what you're doing. Great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll funnel all this money in there and we'll just this is great. But when you don't see that on a wide enough scale, then it's like, well, I have to do something, but I only can do so much. And so then it becomes like, what do you do here? And so the issue becomes, now we're at a point in the economy where it's like there's a lot of people like Colleague's situation, and you either going to have to deal with that on a legitimate scale. You can't just talk about it, or you're going to see the whole demise.
Actually the homeless people that people have to help.
Well, it's not the homelessness. It's living the paycheck by paycheck. You're not homeless. You're living the paycheck by paycheck, and the problem is any attempt to try to get out of this escape hole that you're in is only going to capitulate when as simple as an emergency. And it's like, well, all that went to nothing. And now it's like, what am I even doing here?
I mean, Colleague could be, a crisis away from being homeless.
Right.
And that's a terrifying
Well, any
thought.
of us could, technically.
That's true. Technically, yeah. But, it's a terrifying thought to live with. I mean, yeah.
Well, I know the Blue Cross.
I'm sorry,
and the Red
I keep
Cross.
jumping in. Oregon, bro.
It's fine.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Oregon. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say we could take a look back at I guess you could go all the way back to 2008, but to 2019, I guess, and thereon until now, inflation has gotten really bad, and that's because of a few things. Locking down the country, which, I mean, I know it's a virus, and we can vaccinate, and do all these things and mitigate transmission, but there's something called fomite transmission, and there's millions of different variations. That's if we're actually trusting the PCR testing and what Anthony Fauci says is liable. But besides that, a lot of people couldn't go to work, or they lost their jobs because of the lockdown. That was an issue. And then Biden was like, well, we got decrease inflation. They were doing a lot of that. And then he's like, okay, well, all these people that are locked down in the South America that can't go to work and are having issues, come over here. And they're like, okay. And so you have all these people coming over here, not just from South America, but from all around the world that were dealing with a lockdown. Because America had places that had never locked down or would open and reopen, and sanctuary cities at the time had a lot of. Barry, do you want to go to timeout? You can go to timeout. Hold on, give me like 2 seconds.
Well, you want to respond to that, Mr. Debbie?
Wow. Well, there's no doubt.
Sorry, I dropped a little bomb on you guys, but from what I remember, that's what I can recall is the lockdown, and it's like, okay, then have everyone come over, and during the pandemic or whatever, and then you have issues, of course, with the downturn of all that, trying to reopen the economy. Most of the small businesses are shut down or have had to redo refinancing or bankruptcy. And that's a lot of what happened. And so now you have a lot more people working at a McDonald's than they normally would, or working at all these large corporations. And it encouraged, and their profit instead was what up. They stayed open the whole time when the lockdown happened. So that didn't help anybody that was trying to start their life, coming out of being a kid and starting their adulthood. think a lot of that has to do with the artificial manipulation of the economy and how we were treated during the lockdown, and how we're being treated now by giving every single billionaire more, actually, that's how Elon Musk is rich. That's how Jeff Bezos is. One of the reasons why they're so rich is because of all these grants they're getting from the government. So, instead of giving cities that have water, like Flint, Michigan, or places like that have water issues, giving them $1 billion or whatever, they'd rather give Jeff Bezos a tax write-off or do whatever nice thing it is for him, because he's got a huge economic interest, and part of that is helping with robotics industry, and that plays a huge role into the future of how our society is turning out. But I don't know, not just, and then Trump. Sorry, just one more thing. Trump campaigning that we're not going to do EVs, and then he brings in Elon Musk, and he's like, everything's computer. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it's like, okay, well, why didn't you ask Elon Musk, instead of producing more electric vehicles, why didn't you ask him to design better technologies for better fracking so they can have better drilling technology? There's all these other things these billionaires could have been used for, instead of Trump just having fiduciary loyalty to these people, because that's what it is. But anyways, I digress. There, so.
Well, what do you say to that, Mr. Ted B? I'm just trying to respond to some of these text messages. These chat messages.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. It's interesting. I will definitely agree with you that the pandemic just totally messed up this country, especially economically. I basically lost my job at a educational institution because of the pandemic. That it hit schools really bad because you couldn't have kids sitting next to each other in classrooms. So they immediately shut the schools down. It's one of the first things they did. So I was involved in IT in the school, and there's no students, there's no teachers, there's not much you can do with IT. So we were furloughed, and that was the beginning of some trouble, financial trouble, because. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that the pandemic was totally overreacted to. Obviously there should have been caution. I don't have a problem with people being vaccinated, wearing masks, being cautious when you go out in public. But I think the idea of shut down businesses, making it that was a bad move. And there's many small businesses which communities depend on that had to shut down because of that. We lost, in my small town that I live in here outside of Philadelphia, we lost several restaurants because they couldn't survive during the pandemic. They were doing takeout orders, but it just wasn't enough. And there were their family-owned restaurants that just had to close. And I feel bad for the families, but also for the people who would go to these restaurants and get food. And now we have a couple less, places where you can go and eat. So yeah, that's it was a mess. As far as your comments on Elon Musk and Bezos and all these ultra rich people, I'm torn. There's part of me that says, yeah, nobody should be that rich. It's way too much. What are you going to do with all that money? But then again, you have to look at situations where, A, are they charitable? Are they giving any of that money back to charities? B, the businesses that they're running, they're employing people. Those people have jobs. They have money. They can then go and live their life. They can, buy houses and cars and food and, keep the economy going because they have a job. Now, if we all of a sudden said, well, these rich people have to give up, 90% of their wealth, well, maybe they'll still be okay. They'll still have a couple $1 million. They'll still be able to live a good life. But if they're cut, really significantly, they're going to start laying people off. They're going to start closing businesses. How many of these people, these ultra rich people, you think the money that they have in a bank somewhere, they wouldn't be able to live off the interest for the rest of their life? And yet, if one of their businesses closes, how many people are going to lose their jobs, and then the unemployment rate goes up. And what else do we do now? To Host's point, we have more people then that need help. So I don't like these ultra rich people either. I don't like corporations, but I see a function of them. So that's my 2 cents.
I don't understand the function of the corporation if their end goal is to eventually replace most of the workforce with robots.
Well, what would be
That,
your alternative? Like,
you know,
again, like I've always said many times, I'm a big capitalist, always have been. I'm having an existential crisis within the last 5 years dealing with that because I've always been a big absolutist when it comes to free markets. But I'm having to rethink a lot of my normal thoughts about that. But what would be your solution if the world that we live in today is capitalistic and it's functionarily incentive based and people have to contribute to the economy or the economy collapses, then if we abrogate corporations and the functions that they have in our economy, wouldn't be the only solution more a socialistic function?
yeah, socialistic on maybe on one level and capitalistic on another. I think I know that there's elements of socialism already function in society, public schooling, police officers, firefighters, things like that, paramedics. Um,
But their
but
argument would be let's like an absolute
I
free
guess I need to be
marketist, which I used to be a lot more absolute about it. An absolute free marketist would say, if we got rid of all regulations, we could fix this. Privatize everything, except for the minimal things like you can't privatize the military, that's too big. But let's privatize as much as we can because private entities can get things done faster because they have incentives to make profits. The government doesn't, and their only source of income is taxation. We can reduce taxation, put more capital in people's pockets by not taxing everybody to death, and then we can incentivize better infrastructure because private corporations will get all this done faster because they are incentivized by profits.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I'm
but
connected.
no regulations.
Lady told me.
Then they can charge $10 for a bottle of Coke.
Well, that's why if you have hyper capitalism with hyper free markets, competition becomes legit because if this company over here is just as much incentivized to maximize their profits, then they're either going to drop prices, which is going to force everybody else to, or they're going to create better products, which are going to justify the value. Either way, if you had real free markets, it would kind of fix itself. But when you have subsidies incentivizing corporations, they don't really have an emphasis to maximize either quality of products or economical distribution of products. What they have is just, I'll just do the base I can, maximize profits, and I know if I get short, I'll either get a bailout or a subsidy. So even governments are having subsidies. They're getting a welfare. This is corporate welfare.
Yeah.
So get rid of all that too. If you got rid of all the subsidies and all the bailouts, literally, you know how many companies would have already collapsed by now? And we would have, a lot of this stuff would have been fixed if they would have just literally let them all go bankrupt.
It's just the same thing as repealing every single executive order that we've ever with one. It's kind of like society would have a hard time functioning to figure out new laws right away and how to straighten itself out. And a lot of that is done by executive order too. This business and the way we do all this foreign trade and all that stuff, and the way we delegate things to business. So I think, like I said, maybe on one level that after we've all had this conversation. Well, after a certain point, can't they just have a point where they just start giving money back? Well, I mean, Elon Musk apparently he already pays Social Security like hours into the first year of every single year. So it's like, yeah, if you were to tell them, okay, now you have to liquidate this 30%, I think that would be fine. It doesn't have to be 90%. These people are coming out with all these crazy numbers. I think we can find a number that's reasonable where they can have to be taxed a little more. Especially if they're going to be replacing people with AI, then their companies just need to be able to use the robot, use the robots, whatever they want to use. But then there needs to be an ability for everyone else to create a business and still be a part of the economy. But it's like the future is also you like I've said in the past, Noah Uvalde Harari says he wants to go under the skin. So if the whole future is then about merging people with an AI grid or whatever that's going to be, then they don't have no need for us to have jobs if we're just going to be part of this AI grid and all the robots are going to make money for us. Which I just again I don't understand how that's all going to work. They have the idea of how that's going to work, and I think Larry Fink or who was it recently that talked about every all the money's going to be going to digital currency recently. I
Well,
forgot his
what
name.
he
I
wants to
forgot.
create, which he's been talking about with the World Economic Forum, which they've been talking about for over a decade, is called the
Right.
tokenized economy. They ultimately want
Yes.
to tokenize everything because you can partition everything into smart contracts. Like if I have a home, I can partition my house into 1,000 little smart tokens, and then I can just rent a part, or I can use this as my own. And it's almost like creating my own individual stock market. So let's say I have a house worth $500,000. I can partition this into 1,000 pieces, and if somebody like colleague he wants to invest in my home and its equity, he can get one of these smart tokens and he can actually now borrow against the equity of that smart token because I can partition my house's equity in multiple segments of tokenizing. So he wants to tokenize the entire economy utilizing smart contracts, and they're using this as a means of distribution to access of everybody. But ultimately, this is going to imply programmable money because if you're going to have a tokenized economy, you have to have a digitalized tokenized system. And so all the ideas on the forefront, it's almost like a stock, having a stock split. The reason why they have stock splits, like if you like, I don't know if you remember just a couple of years ago, Amazon was like $2,300 a share. And the reason why they do the stock split is because nobody can afford $2,300 for one share. So what we do is we'll do a stock split. We'll do a 10-1, and we can drop it down to $200. Now people can invest it again, and they just add more shares available. So now more people can invest in. It's still worth the same value. They just have a stock split. It's the same. It's no different than trying to tokenize your individual houses. And so what they're trying to do is pretend like the idea is accessible for lower income people and everybody has access to capital and everybody has access to investing, but really it's just a means to program your money because now everything's going to be institutionalized through smart contracts. But I don't know, like I say, back to the free market quandary, what do you think this world would look like if we just allowed big companies like back in their bailouts? What if we allowed those banks to fail? What if we allowed, and these private banks, the Federal Reserve would never fail, but these private banks would have a lot of them would have failed, selling all these mortgage bonds and these credit default swaps. If we allowed them all to fail, if we allowed Chrysler to fail, if we allowed all these companies to fail, it's not like everything would be gone. That's the fear pushing. Oh, we can't do that. Everything would be gone. No, they would be swallowed up by larger companies, and eventually things would just move forward. You just wouldn't have subsidies, cash, taxpayer cash bailing out these other entities that should have already been gone. And so you have this corporate welfare going on, and this is what's continue propagating the manipulation of our economy. And it looks like it's doing great, but it's all inflated by corporate welfare. So I said, let them collapse. If you let them collapse, you'll see a big shift in the economy.
Yeah. Yeah, you get quantitative easing. That's why you have all these bank bailouts too constantly. This bank bailing out other banks, the Federal Reserve bailing out smaller banks, uh, all the time. Well, throughout, I don't know about recently, but all the time. It does. That happens a lot. It happened recently too, probably in the last 5 years. But yeah, you have all this. Oh, I'm going to bail you out because we have some sort of economic contract of some kind. There's some sort of uh, thing that is contracted and discussed between them that obviously nobody else knows about besides them. For whatever reason, we got to continue to bail out these people and keep them around. And a lot of people say, "Hey, that's one of the reasons why I want the Epstein files released because I want the financials to be released. I want to be able to um, uh, look at and see where the money is going and see who's responsible for what and why who paid what for. If you don't stop, you're going to go to timeout. You want to go to timeout? No, you can't because you're about to go to timeout. No more tablets then too.
But even if you found out where all the money was going, that's not going to fix the problem. Like even if we did an audit on the Federal Reserve, it's not going to inherently fix the problem because all we'll see is how much they printed and how much they have manipulated our currency. That's not going to fix what corporations do because ultimately corporations are still going to say, are you going to give me low interest or are you going to give me high interest? If the Fed rate goes up, I'm firing people. Money's too expensive. If you drop those rates for me, though, I get this cheap money. I can hire a bunch of people, theoretically. But no, you give me a bunch of cheap money, now I'm just going to buy a bunch of automation and invest in more in AI infrastructure.
I'm on the phone. Not being very nice.
So even if you knew where all the money went today, like maybe a decade ago might have done something, but today, what's it going to make a difference? No matter what you audit and what you know, if you don't change the corporate infrastructure.
I just wanted to say, I know we're coming up on our deadline here. It's close to 7 o'clock. And I just wanted to make sure, a colleague, I just wanted to say that I would love to be able to find a way to speak to you offline. There's a couple things I'd like to share with you that are private that I don't want to really talk about in this in the streaming, but I don't know if I could help your situation just by talking about you about some of the things. But if there's a way we can figure out for you and I to talk off screen, that would be amazing. So
well, maybe we can try to time's experiment. Maybe we
I
can
gotta
try to
go,
figure
guys.
out next.
I'm so sorry. I'll
Yep.
try to stay focused, but my kid is killing me right now. Bye, guys.
All right, no problem. Maybe we could try to figure that out. Maybe next week, Ted B. Maybe we can try to figure out a means. Maybe utilizing Discord as a private connection, using Discord so you guys can communicate through that means. Because I know you guys can do voice chats through Discords and stuff. But yeah, I think on the chats, Noah Cloud and Mr. D Power says they might try to chime in next week, which that's good. They have, I know Mr. Cloud has some interesting ideas about our economical situation, homelessness, and all those things, and so does D Powers and anybody else. If you guys want to chime in and come on, then,
I would love it. I would love to see other people join in, and I feel bad that we've been kind of ignoring the chat because you guys have been giving me the opportunity to speak, and I really appreciate it, and I love being on the show. But I feel like we've been kind of ignoring the chat.
I've been talking to him. I've been typing in and chatting with him, but a lot of times what they say we kind of use as emphasis or platforms to talk about other things. So it's not like they're getting neglected, but it also gives them motivation.
I don't want to monopolize,
Yeah, if people want to chime on, they can always get in here too. But yeah, anyways, I appreciate you chiming in, Mr. Ted B. Like I said, maybe next week we can try to figure out maybe do Discord or something where you guys can have a voice chat or something. But also, we look forward to Mr. Noah Cloud and D Powers possibly coming in next week. That'd be exciting. And we didn't get to see Mr. Tom McLaughlin today. Now he's probably tied up with the IRS or DARPA or somebody.
Again, I was going to say, I always am going to welcome religious conversation and stuff because that's my field of interest. Maybe this channel is more of a financial advisory channel. I don't know. Maybe it's just the wrong place, but I'm interested in that kind of stuff. I'm not in a place where I could be interested in finances right now. Maybe if, I got a guap slapped on my lap, that'd be nice. But, so that's my specific interest. And again, as I've said before, Christianity has caught my eye several times because of those specific reasons I mentioned. So,
well, we talk about religious things all the time, philosophical things too. But I know right now the real reason is because there is so many people in the same bucket saying, what should I even do? Why do I even care? Why should I care? There is no hope for our physical future, like housing, finances, anything. Why should I even care? And so a lot of people are looking for that answer. And if the answer is UBI, then people need to stop kicking against the pricks and just go with UBI. But if it's not, then we have to figure out something because people have to pay bills tomorrow. People have to feed the children tomorrow. People have to have real life tomorrow. And it's like, what are we going to do with that? And yeah, that has religious overtones as well. But, it needs to be eclectic. It's like, religious faith.
Well, that's what I was saying. If this is maybe this is more of a financial advisory channel, and we can help you, with your finances and stuff, because that's what matters the most. And that's cool. Maybe that's what it is.
Well,
let's not forget those conspiracies, guys.
Oh yeah, of course. Well,
I think
I don't
you-
know if we can go down those roads too much.
I think you're going overboard with that statement, but
Maybe.
I appreciate you guys tuning in as always, and with everybody else coming in next week. Hopefully I can fix all this. I don't know exactly what happened. I thought I fixed it all this week, but we'll see. Because if I can get that Facebook Live to chime in, that's literally another 620,000 people who have at least access to chime in on the live too. So we'll see what all that is. But anyways, as always, that's Mr. Colleague. I'm host. And tune into this Saturday's episode 181, Coliseum of Clowns.
Thanks for chiming in, Ted.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
chiming
absolutely. Yep.
in. All right, see you guys next week.
Hey, guys. Have a good week.
You too.